just downloaded a Trackmania game, be it the 2020 version, Mania Planet, or Nations Forever. You've noticed that there is a large amount of players who use just the keyboard, but others will commonly use a controller for the same game. Which one is better for you? I've played some form of Trackmania since 2008 with Nations Forever, and I've used primarily a keyboard to play this game. I largely play on full speed maps, although I've played about 90% of Nation Forever solo campaign tracks, and I've dabbled in tech, RPG, and LoL styles. When I discovered and downloaded Trackmania, I just kept playing with the keyboard and haven't really looked back since. In 2017, I got into playing Dirt Rally, so I picked up a DualShock 4 to play Dirt with. I decided to try out my regular servers on Nations Forever with a DualShock, but found that my reaction times were a lot slower than with using the keyboard. While I'm fairly certain that most of the experience between controller and keyboard is subjective, there are a few objective points that both methods benefit from. This is mostly in the view of someone who plays about 99% full speed maps, although I do mention the earlier tracks, ice driving, and drifting. Trackmania is one of the only racing games that could be mastered with just a keyboard. Trackmania is also one of the quickest racing games, with some maps requiring you to drive over 800 kilometers an hour. The stadium environment, introduced in 2006 with Trackmania Nations, contains a stadium car, with twitchy steering, a super light steering weight, and impossible physics breaking handling. This makes the car, and subsequently the game, viable if one were to use solely a keyboard for driving in the game. For most tracks, especially preceding Trackmania 2020, a keyboard is still usable for driving on any track, and nearly all driving techniques can be done on just the keyboard. As a matter of fact, many tutorials on Trackmania driving technique teach how to execute these skills with just the keyboard. If you're already accustomed to the navigation keys on your keyboard, sticking to it may be the way for you to go. The quick reaction times required for certain styles in the game, such as full speed, are only achievable for me on the keyboard. Despite the fine angle control required for a speed drift in full speed, it is fine to hold the angle required for the speed drift by just tapping the direction as needed. However, a controller can offer much finer inputs, which is of great importance especially on Trackmania 2020's ice tracks. The bobsled style tracks are highly difficult on a keyboard due to the amount of steering finesse required. Digital inputs are much harder to control for ice tracks, as the exact amount of steering required is much more important than on asphalt. Finer inputs on asphalt are much easier on a controller, especially for speed drifting. Rather than having to hold the angle necessary by tapping the direction constantly, one can just nudge the stick to the correct angle and hold the angle until the speed drift can be released. Anyone who's played any environment that is not stadium may notice that while the stadium car is perfect for keyboard control, many other vehicles in the series have quirkier handling. Canyon cars hold power slides and they have much more noticeable heft. Island cars don't turn as well but go just as fast, and coast cars handle like you're playing Grand Theft Auto 4. The finer control offered on a controller can help with controlling this variety of cars, as you're able to more easily adjust and cater to the amount of steering, gas, and brake required for each environment. For instance, while the desert car is really top heavy and leans far too much into turns, using a controller, a player can adjust the amount of steering, gas, and brake more easily to counter the desert car handling. Ultimately though, if you're new to the game and unsure of how to play, just go with whatever you're already used to. A lot of people introduced to this game have come from the Nations and Nations Forever games. However, if you're using one, a controller provides much more nuance for input, allowing for more control with the car. Analog input can really help, and on ice in 2020 may even be necessary. If you already have a games console with a PC compatible controller like an Xbox One or PlayStation 4, I would definitely start playing the game with the controller, as good as the keyboard input is on Trackmania. Ultimately though, using a keyboard or controller would be more of a personal preference, so if you feel better with one method than the other, just keep using it instead of forcing yourself to switch methods. You'll be more consistent overall sticking to what you know than trying to relearn the game on a different input method. Also, if you use a game wheel for Trackmania, you are a god.